About this, you've got those points to go over. Ooh, glad you didn't have coffee in the cup. There you go.
Oh, my Keto Mojo. Oh, you got it up there. Is that mine?
Yeah. There's your Keto Mojo. And there's your coffee cup. Let you talk over this for a second.
Well, I mean, I just went over it quickly because I didn't.
We're getting it all together here. We should have had it all together by now, but uh-oh. I think my battery is dead.
Your battery's dead?
Yeah.
Is mine even on? Is mine turned on? Yeah.
Okay, yours is on. Okay, mine's on. Mine's chirping. Is yours chirping? Let me see it. Yours may be dead. There we go. All right. Let me grab my computer. So welcome to the Talk at 10. We are discussing blood sugar currently. And I'm going to try to bring this up. So we are live. Nobody's joined yet, so we can get done what we need to done. Probably need to share it out on our one things.
I like that one well.
Uh-oh. I don't know what that means. There we are. Now, watch live video. So we should. All right. Okay, so. Uh-oh. I don't know what that means. Good morning, all. W. All right. So, first things first, why is diabetes, or actually not even diabetes, why is your blood sugar important? And the main thing for blood sugar and the importance of blood sugar is because we have a hormone in us called insulin. Actually, it's a peptide, but that hormone, that peptide in us, causes lots of problems. The research behind chronic elevated insulin is showing that that leads to problems with our problems with cardiovascular disease. Sorry, the numbers for what diabetes actually costs us as a nation in money and lives is actually staggering. So we want to control for insulin, and how can we control blood sugar? And what we want to do today is give some easy tips and easy things to do so that you don't have to go to a doctor like me, or you don't have to go to another doctor or a functional medicine doctor and figure out how to actually do this. And so as we're talking and as we're looking at this, I want to give you the easy steps to clean things up, to make it easy, to start to control your blood sugar. Nurse Jess is going to go over how to use the Keto Mojo. There's actually a new Keto Mojo out that is fabulous. I like it. If I had one thing to tell Keto Mojo, it would be that the app is super slow for some reason, and I don't know why. It's slow to open, it's slow to connect, and it's slow to transfer. But other than that, the information that it gives you is very actionable. So you want to show them real quick how to do the Keto Mojo?
Yeah, mine is the older, last year's model. He has the newest model, and really the only thing different is that, I was trying to bring the app up, so it's got a cool little app for your phone. So it'll track everything, download everything, but that's the difference between the newest and the last year's, or 2 years ago, because mine uses the little stick that plugs in that transmits. The new version, the unit just does it itself. So I'm not sure what we'll get. I don't like sticking my finger, but this one's not too bad. So when you get your Keto Mojo, Comes in a little case like this. You get your little finger pokers. Use alcohol. Don't be like Trevor and lick your fingers. It'll actually skew your results, honestly. If you don't wipe your fingers off, you get residues of the things that you've touched or the things that you've eaten. So it'll actually give you
I'm
a
usually
mystery.
fasted.
Well, I get it, but still, use your alcohol. So you turn your little machine on. So you get the Keto Mojo machine. The machine's no different really. And then you'll get the keto strips. These are all dated. They got an expiration date. And with this machine, if your strips are out of date, it refuses to let you use them. So you can't use out of date strips. And then, let's see. So you got one for ketones and you have one for blood sugar. So I haven't eaten, but I did drink my coffee with sweet cream in it, so I'm not real sure what we'll get, but we'll try.
We'll see how this works out.
So,
but why is this important? Why is it important to know your blood sugar numbers?
why do I like to know them, or why should everybody use them?
Why should everybody?
Well, I mean, there's lots of reasons. Blood sugars affect healing. It affects weight. I can actually track my stress. You can track your health, because you feel sick, your blood sugars will go up. Your stress, your blood sugars go up. That's why I use it. I don't typically have a blood sugar issue. So this is the little finger poker. It has a little. You put the lancet in there, and I only use mine once because I'm weird like that, of course, because I'm a nurse. So then you can dial up. So if you got really tough fingers, you can make it poke you harder. I don't, and I don't like it. So I usually keep mine really low. And I do clean my fingers with alcohol, and you should too.
In my experience, women are a lot more, not a lot, but women are more carb tolerant than men. And it is
So then you put
fascinating to see, because we can eat the same things and have totally different readings. So this is why there is no one perfect diet. This is why you have to experiment with yourself and track yourself so that you know what foods affect you.
So you turn your machine on, and then you'll put a strip in there. I usually do that before I poke my finger. Once you've done that, it'll go through its little check. So this, you just draw back. It makes a little orange spot there, so you know you're kind of loaded here. And then you stick it on your finger where you cleaned it,
Triggered on the side.
and you push the button wherever my button went. And I had it too late.
And so statistically speaking, here's some food for thought. We are in the middle of a pandemic, and everybody is worried, and there have been, and I'm not making light of this, there have been 1.9 million deaths to COVID.
So once you put a drop of blood on there, so mine's actually up because I did drink my sweet cream in my coffee. So my blood sugar's 94. You should be able to get another drop of blood, change out your strip here. And we did just exercise because we went for a walk this morning. And that's a ketone strip, and it aired.
Oh, you're not worthy.
So we'll try it again.
Wait until it tells you to. With the old one, it has a slight delay on how
So
to
it's
put
going
that
off, so we're going to turn it back on. It's going to reset itself. And I'm probably going to try to get a new drop of blood. Okay, it says I can put my strip in there. And it just knows that it's a ketone strip.
Yep.
So you don't have to worry about that.
There it is. Holy moly.
I got me a new drop here. So when it counts down, and I'm shaky from my caffeine. So my ketones are low, and that doesn't surprise me because I had sweet cream in my coffee.
So what does insulin do inside the body? Insulin tells your liver to quit making ketones, quit using triglycerides as a source of fatty acids for energy. So right now, her body is just running off of dietary glucose. And really think about this for just a second. How do I pose the question? So, is glucose bad? No, it's not. It's actually what your body puts into the cell to go through the Krebs cycle in DNA and to kick out what is known as ATP. You actually run off of ATP. But contrary to marketing and stuff like that, we don't have to run just on glucose. You don't need to be chugging Gatorade. You don't need to be eating a Snickers bar. You don't need to be doing these things every 20 to 30 minutes. Your body will do just fine running off of fatty acids. And fatty acids, when I say fatty acids, I'm not talking about you running off of, just being ketogenic and you're hammering coconut oil, or you're just putting butter in your coffee or whatnot. That's not what I'm talking about. What I am talking about is your body will go in, and if you have high triglycerides, it'll start to break those down, especially if you're in a fasted state, especially if you are eating a high fiber diet, and it'll start to burn those or put those into the Krebs cycle to kick out the ATP. And that's actually preferable. Your brain will run off of ketones better than it runs off of blood sugar. And the side effects aren't as bad. Insulin is great, but it's like anything else. If you have too much insulin, it's not good. If you have too much, good Lord, name anything, it's good. If you go get a massage every 15 minutes, it's going to rub your skin raw. If you go have sex every day, you get numb to it. Too much of anything is too much. So what has to happen is you want times where the body is just working on the triglycerides and the ketones and stuff like that, because it allows the body to clean up. So if your blood sugar, and she's correct, your blood sugar, if you get worried, blood sugar goes up. Why is that? Because when you look at what is known as the Hpa axis, the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, when you are going along and you get nervous, you get scared, you go into a sympathetically dominant reaction, and then that starts to kick up your adrenaline, your testosterone. That's your fight or flight. Blood sugar raises. That's a good thing. That's what you want to happen, because if that doesn't happen, you don't care and you're just going to be saber-toothed tiger food. Circling back around to what I was talking about, asking questions about the pandemic, COVID-19 has killed 1.9 million people. How many people do you think are going to die from diabetes this year? You know the answer.
Want me to say it?
Yep.
Like 4.2 or 4.7?
4.2 million people will die from diabetes and complications of diabetes this year. When you take those people who are already ill, and diabetes causes lots of cardiovascular issues. So if you're having an issue with blood sugar, let's define what is a good fasting blood sugar. So without coffee, without any inputs, you wake up first thing in the morning and you stick your finger. The optimal blood sugar is between 75 and 85. And that allows you to just run and do what you need to do. That camera is the live camera. That's why you see the names of people joining there.
I was just curious who was.
So what ends up happening at that point in time is, as you get up, cortisol kicks in. When cortisol kicks in, you automatically get an elevation of blood sugar. Once again, still normal. So if you wait 10 minutes after you wake up and you take your blood sugar, it might be 100. And so that's where you also want to look at your ketones, because if you have 0.3 to 0.5, ketones around there, if your ketones are in that range, then you really don't have super high insulin. But if you wake up in the morning, your blood sugar is 100, your ketones are 0, then you're probably staying at a high blood sugar through the night. I would recommend, as a chiropractor, I am not allowed to put a constant glucose monitor on somebody. But I would tell you, as a functional medicine doctor, I would say, hey Jessica, you need to go talk to your primary care physician, and you need to have a constant glucose monitor for about a month or 2.
And they're hard to get, just so you know.
Oh yeah, I wanted to pay privately. Well, I did pay privately. Getting a constant glucose monitor was no easy feat.
Actually, I tried to get one and I was not able to get one.
What is that?
I have no idea. I didn't meet the criteria. The criteria is really strict. And before I forget, this little Keto Mojo, the app, I downloaded all my things. So not only does it track your glucose and your ketones, but it'll also tell you your hematocrit and your hemoglobin, which you can also, for me as a nurse, I just know like what mine normally runs, but you can track to see if you're hydrated or dehydrated based on your readings sometimes. So there you go.
So with that all in play, those are kind of things that you want to see. Now, the next thing that you want to really look at is, what are you eating? And so a good way to test, if you don't have like an Oura ring, which heart rate variability will drop off, if you're going to, I really wish we would have tested our blood sugar before we ate yesterday.
Next week I will fast, and then I will show you what difference.
And so, right before you eat, in a fasted state, take your blood sugar.
And before you exercise.
And at that point in time, you should be between, depending on where you're at. If you're in a fasted state, it should be between 75 and 85. If you've eaten, if you've drank coffee, you'll be in the 90s probably. You take your blood sugar, then write it down. Eat. That's a bolus dose of food, essentially. Bolus just means a big quantity all at once. Then your blood sugar is going to naturally rise, and it should rise within 30 minutes. You do not want your blood sugar to go above 140. If your blood sugar goes above 140, whatever you just ate is not right for you. If your heart rate variability drops way down, whatever you just ate is not right for you. So we're starting to get to where we can actually monitor these things and we can see what happens. So at 30 minutes, your blood sugar should be about 120, 125, 130 tops. Once again, if you go above 140, no mas. Now, at 30 minutes later, it should start to drop. So if you're at, let's say you're perfect and you're at 120, you should be down around the 110 range. And then an hour later, you should be, so take it at 30 minutes, take it at an hour and 30, take it at an hour, and at an hour you should be at 100. And then by the time 2 hours is up, you should be back to your baseline, which was, if you were drinking coffee, 90, 95. If you were fasted and you were 75 to 85, you probably won't drop down into that range actually. It's been my experience that I haven't seen people do that, but they typically are right about that 85, 90 range, just depending. So that's kind of how you can tell and you can test. And if you come into somebody like me and you have readings and you have your food, you save a whole lot of headache and a whole lot of work. So those are some things that you can do at home to monitor your blood sugar, and then you start to play with it. Another thing that affects blood sugar, and this comes from my own personal story, is sleep. I used to get 4 to 5 hours of sleep and I thought I was rocking and rolling. I would get up in the morning and every morning my blood sugar was like 120 and my heart rate variability was crap. And I was that hard charger. I hate that. I hate saying that. I was just dumb. Life's a journey and you learn along the way. So I was reading Chris Kresser. I was listening to Mark Hyman, the usual group. And then Kirk Parsley, Dr. Parsley, put out a sleep book, and I read that, and I read Matthew Walker's sleep book. And what those ended up saying was, if you're not getting at least 7.5 hours of sleep, plus or minus 30 minutes, then you're not going to heal. And sleep is on par with metformin. Just go read the studies, go to PubMed, type in sleep and blood sugar, and you will start to see the studies that show that when you get 8 hours sleep, when you give yourself an 8 hour sleep opportunity, 8 to 9 hour sleep opportunity, and you're actually getting that 7 to 7.5 hours of sleep, your blood sugar drops. Your body becomes more resilient. Your body becomes more receptive to insulin. You don't have cravings for sugars and stuff like that. And so I was doing CrossFit at the time. I was training for Ironmans and half Ironmans. I was working out about 20 hours a week, and I was still staying at 250. I think 250, 240 at the lowest I would get it. I could push it down to 230, and now that's where I stay, at 230. So I just quit. And when I quit and I started getting 7 hours of sleep, I typically range at 7 hours.
I like 8.5 or more.
Women typically like to get a little more sleep than men. I don't know if that's because we're the hunters and we're just programmed that way genetically. I wish I had all the answers.
3.
Yeah, that's no good. So, okay, we're back. So with that being said, that sleep opportunity is needed, and it's going to take 3 to 4 days easy to try to get into a regular sleep routine. First night you're going to wake up. I used to wake up at 4 on the dot, so I had to start going to bed at 8 so I could give myself that sleep opportunity. And now I can slide that scale around, and actually my phone, I have an Apple phone, that allows me to dial that in. And just going to bed knowing that I have that emergency alarm, if I oversleep it'll wake me up, allows me to get a great night's sleep. I track my sleep with this. I'm getting deep sleep, and we can see all of my markers going down, which, by the way, I'm going to reshoot my blood markers because I did have high, not triglycerides, but I had high cholesterol. And so I'm trying to, with diet, monitor and bring that down, and a little bit of exercise. We started doing some zone 1 walking. So with that being done, my blood sugars typically are spot on now, but it's taken me several years to get there. And I have just introduced high intensity interval training that will spike blood sugar right now. So if you're training zone 1, zone 2, so for all my triathletes out there and people who have heart rate monitors and the watches that do that, zone 1, zone 2, your blood sugar should just precipitously drop. If you're doing high intensity interval training, your blood sugar will go whoop. The highest blood sugars I ever had were when we were doing the CrossFit WODs that were rounds for time, and they were heavy and fast, and my blood sugar would just jump through the roof. That's normal. And so you get to start to learn yourself. I did that when I had a constant glucose monitor on, and those things just give you a wealth of information. Actually, sourdough bread is supposed to be one of the things that is good for you. It's fermented and it takes out the gluten. It's not gluten-free, but it lowers the gluten. And I had a hypoglycemic event. Remember, we were at
birthday.
Yep. And so when I had the hypoglycemic event, luckily I always have ketones present, So when my blood sugar dropped out, it's like being a hybrid vehicle. The ketones took over, and I just started burning fatty acids. So we covered COVID, which has killed 1.9 million people so far. This year alone, diabetes will kill 4.2. We've touched on sleep. The next pillar for controlling blood sugar is nutrition. Okay, folks, if it comes in a package or a box or a can,
It's not real food.
it's not real food. The fiber has been removed. All of these things that you need to feed your microbiome. So if you kill off your microbiome with antibiotics, you can actually make yourself diabetic. If you kill off your microbiome by being exposed to environmental toxins, guess what? You can make yourself diabetic. If you heavy metal poison yourself, you can make yourself diabetic. So these are all things that you have to take into account. So nutrition-wise, you want to make sure that you are eating real food. And real food will not spike your blood sugar, typically. I mean, I guess if you got into orange or grapes are just sugar bombs. That's all they are. And they'll spike my blood sugar, so I will eat one or two and that's it. But it's one of those things where you just get to learn your body and you can control this. Type 2 diabetes is absolutely a lifestyle disease. It's a choice, unless you have gotten into environmental toxins and stuff like that. And then we can typically get you back out of it by going through a detox and stuff like that. You know, we don't want the easy cases. I don't want the cases where we sit down and, oh, Jessica, quit eating the Krispy Kremes. You should know that. That's free information. Why pay for that information? That's not good. What we want to do is, oh, Jessica, your diet looks really clean. You're eating, good protein, your fats, you're eating Brussels sprouts and asparagus and cauliflower, you're eating fermented foods, so your diet looks fabulous. Something's not right. And that's where we want to start to dig in at. That's when we want to start to do the microbiome test, and that's when we want to do the Heidelberg test, and that's when we want to do these tests to figure out what's going on, what's wrong inside the mechanism that is causing the mechanism not to act as it's supposed to. And that's, nutrition is super easy, people. If you have a $20 monitor from Walmart, you can follow your blood sugar. Can't follow ketones, but you can follow blood sugar. And the P strips, they work after a week. I mean, they work for about a week, I should say. Once you start to get to where you are metabolically flexible, your ketone strips won't work anymore, because your body will know that, hey, I can't pee out the beta hydroxybutyrate, I can't pee out the ketones, because I might need those for energy.
Did you tell them why ketones are important and what they do?
Well, I think I touched on it. I'll just go over it briefly. Ketones will help your body take fatty acids, beta hydroxybutyrate and those things, and they get broken down into energy or into the ATP. They're an alternate source of energy. They help your body take the fatty acids and break them down. Don't quote me on the physiology of that, but it's not just pure glucose, which requires insulin. So.
Well, and you like to fast. Well, I used to love to fast. I need to get back into fasting. I'm going to do that. But there's also levels of ketosis.
Yeah.
And we're going to do something on that too, because that's kind of fascinating. But you don't have to be in a really strong ketosis to lose weight, but you do to clean up cells. Like if you have a history of cancer, you break down those cells and you get rid of them. So we'll go over that one.
And so for me, going back to my story with sleep and quitting sleep, it wasn't until I got a ketone meter that I could actually see that, and I could actually start to manipulate it. I'm metabolically flexible, so my body runs off either or. I'm not a sprinter, never been a sprinter, and so I don't go glycolytic real easy. But as my coach has told me, I'm that diesel train. I can run a long time. I can go a long time on a bike, on a low grade run, swim for a long time, and that's because my body burns ketones. And I didn't do enough review on the actual physiology. This isn't about physiology. This is about getting you guys to realize that shoot for 8 hours of sleep. Start eating fibrous foods. So your Brussels sprouts, your asparagus, and you know, as I said earlier, we cannot tell you what an ideal diet is. We can tell you what a foundational diet should be, but the foundational diet, what happens if you're sensitive to peas? She eats peas, blood sugar shoots up. So me, I love peas. I would put them in everything, and they don't affect my blood sugar. So why not eat them? They have a lot of good protein in them. They've got a lot of good fiber in them, and so that's a good thing. Fiber is your friend, and if you look at things that we have eliminated as Americans, that's one of them. You need that not only for your microbiome, which will help you maintain blood sugar. You need it for your gut motility in general. It helps clean up. Your microbiome eats the fiber, and fiber slows the release of sugar into the bloodstream. So you want to have fiber, and you want, as Dr. Walls says, you want to shoot for at least 40 grams of fiber a day.
Which is really hard to do.
In America.
So you have to supplement sometimes.
I do.
I do too. Which is probably why my blood sugars were up, because mine are gummies. But I took 5 of them.
I do a shake. I do a leafy green shake, and I put some pomegranate. And
I'm a texture person. I can't deal with that. But I did take gummy fiber right before I came here, so that may have been also too why my blood sugar was a little up.
Possibly.
But I feel much better.
And so remember, when you're taking things that have artificial sugars in them, E. coli infections actually relates to Escherichia coli overgrowth in the gut. So be careful when you're doing that. That's nutrition. Anything else I should hit on nutrition? I mean, if it comes in the package that God gave it to you in, it's better than a package from Post or
Well, and a lot of
General
people that have
Mills.
sugar issues want to go to the artificial stuff, but that's not necessarily the best thing for you.
No.
That actually kind of compounds things.
Makes you retain water. It damages the gut. It kills off the microbiome.
And it'll also spike the blood sugars because it sees that it's what do they call
It's
that?
a stressor. So the next thing is, let's dig into pillar number 3, which is movement. So how do you control blood sugar through movement? And people, this is super simple. We were designed to move. Your eyes are in front of your head because you are predatory by nature. That is just the way we evolved and were created, and you've got to get used to that. Being seated for long periods of time, that's not good for us at all. Our legs require that contraction of the muscles to get the blood to go back into the torso. So exercise 2 to 3 times a week. You want to be in zone 2. If you don't know what zone 2 is, look it up. Phil Maffetone did a great little formula for trying to figure out what your zone 2 is. It's very general. I do highly recommend a Polar heart rate monitor or a Garmin heart rate monitor, something that gives you constant feedback.
This one does it, and it learns, and it'll actually tell you, hey, get up and move. It'll shake and remind you to at least get up and stretch.
And so you do that 2 to 3 times a week at a zone 2. That's cardiovascular. The next thing you want to do is high intensity interval training, because that your muscles have independent glucose disposal. They do not, when they are being used heavily, they do not require insulin to actually absorb your blood sugar into the skeletal muscle cells, so it's a great glucose sink. And so that's what you want to use. You want to use your muscles. And so, you know, a great thing to do, and especially if you can't do this, ooh, I don't know if these pants are going to allow it, but a great thing to do is your biggest things to get rid of glucose are the legs and butt. So these large muscle groups will take glucose and just absolutely start to suck it up. So what do you do to activate those? Get into a squat and sit there for as long as you can. And if you can sit there and you sit there and hold it, eventually you'll start to feel your legs burn. And that's when those muscles are starting to fire up and get metabolically active. And you want to do that. I have my patients doing that all the time. I'll have them hold a door because you don't want to squat like this. That's not a squat. You're bending over and crushing your back. You want to get into it and you want to drop straight down, let the knees go wide, and you want to sit. If you want to see how you can squat, go look at a 2-year-old. Watch a 2-year-old squat. They are absolutely intuitively fabulous at it. So that's kind of what you want to do, and that's where you want to be. That allows you to do lots of, if you're exercising like that and you're doing high intensity interval training 2 to 3 times a week, you're doing zone 2 training 2 to 3 times a week, it opens up what you can eat. You can, your foods go from this to out to here. I'm not telling you to go eat pizza, but I am saying that if you stray from it, it doesn't hurt you as bad. So those things, Dr. Hpa talks about being an endurance cyclist and an endurance swimmer. He was able to not knock himself out of ketosis. He was on a ketogenic diet for 3 years. He would eat up to 300 to 400 grams of carbohydrate and not drop out of ketosis. But we're also talking about a dude that is working out 3 hours, 4 hours a day. That's also not, by his own admission, that's not optimal for longevity and health. Great for fitness, but not great for health overall. That made me think of something there real quick. Oh, there is a difference between fitness and health. Just because you are fit, it does not mean you're healthy. But if you are healthy, you're generally pretty fit. It just kind of goes hand, that's the way that works. I shouldn't say goes hand in hand, because if you were fit, you'd be healthy. But those guys who are bodybuilders and who are fit and lean and got the 6-pack abs and all that, they stroke out just as often as normal Americans. So there is a difference between fit and healthy. That is nutrition. Last thing is community. Remember when we were talking about stress? Stress causes blood sugar to go up. If you are in a chronic state of stress, what happens to people who are chronically stressed?
They get sick.
High
They're
blood
tired.
pressure. What else?
They get depressed.
Those things kick in. You don't want those. So if you're hanging out with your friends and they're all Debbie Downers and D-bag Darrells and whatnot, time for an upgrade. Just get rid of them, because
My circle's small.
yeah.
I may be the Debbie Downer sometimes. Just depends on where I'm at.
Well, at times everybody will be the Debbie or Darrell.
I like
But-
to think that I'm a realist, and I just say it like it is.
Yeah, no, realist is a code for pessimist.
Sometimes.
But that's that blood sugar issue. So, doing squats for 5 minutes on the wall making sure you have good squat form. The reason why I say on the wall is because if you lean forward like I showed, then what happens to you is you're starting to hammer the low back. We don't want to do that. We want a good squat like a child squats, because long term, I'm 50 now, when I'm my dad's age, 85, 86, I want to live independently. I want us to still be going out for walks and doing things. I want to play with my grandchildren or great-grandchildren. And you have to be able to get to the floor, because guess what? They don't play up here where we're all at. So you can either be in the rocking chair watching them do their thing, or you can get in there and do it.
I still want to be hiking around trying to chase my dog.
There you go. Yeah.
It lives long enough.
I don't like to watch baseball. I don't like to watch soccer. I don't like to watch golf. I like to do those things, and those are things that you have to do. Once again, do not. You know what? Best thing ever happened to me in my life is getting rid of television. Absolutely. I mean, you can ask her if there's a TV in wherever we're eating and I can see it. I don't know why I go stupid, but I just do. It's unbelievable, and I catch myself doing it. But get rid of the television. We heard more news today dropping off Gracie, and it was all so many COVID cases and this, that, and the other. And I saw a statistic yesterday, and I don't know if it's real. I didn't vet it out, but I am going to repeat it, that the CDC admitted that 96% of the COVID deaths were over-reported being attributed to COVID. So that 1.9 million deaths for COVID versus 4.2 legitimate deaths from diabetes, what should we really be worried about? I mean, I know we got to worry about COVID, but I think that if we look at tiers, and this is your base and healthy, you got to worry about diabetes and blood sugar first, because what raises inflammation? What causes problems?
Well, what puts you more at risk for COVID?
High blood sugar. And then you have COVID on top of that. That's that chronic case with an acute problem, the acute on the chronic. So we really have to be thinking about this. And I, as an APOE3/4 for genetics, I really have to be careful for this, because I am 20% more likely to get Alzheimer's long term. And so that's one of those things that has been directly correlated to high insulin levels. High insulin levels cause the oxidation of the fats, it causes the oxidation of the lining of the vessels, and it causes all kinds of problems. So we really don't want to think about diabetes being 126, because if you're at 126, you got a lot of work to do. And I don't know why 126 is the arbitrary number that we picked that said, hey, this is when you're diabetic. But you really need to be concerned when your blood sugar is staying at 100 and 110 all the time, because that's not optimal. Remember, fasting optimally is between 75 and 85. LabCorp gives us a range and says, hey, if your blood sugar is between 90 and 120, you're okay. Why do they say that? When you take a line and say, this is all the results of every blood test that we've done, and now we start to put all the dots for all the people on here. And as we put all the dots for all the people on here, LabCorp says, where are 90% of our findings? Right here. Okay, so this is where it's at. Now we're going to give you two standard deviations above and below for normal.
Well, and then normal is different based on where you're practicing, because functional medicine nutritionist in a professional medical doctor, or the protocol for practicing or treating in a hospital setting is different.
Yeah, their standard
of
care.
Below 150.
Yeah.
is good. Anything greater than 150, you treat for it.
You just got a whole bunch of little guys in your veins and arteries with
But at
blood
150,
torches.
you should be concerned. 140, you should be concerned.
110, you should be concerned. So you also have to remember, where does LabCorp get its patient population? What does it do, or where does it get its statistics from? Who goes to the doctor? Who goes to the hospital? People who are already ill. So you're normal for an ill population. That's great. That's not good enough for me. So we've covered pretty much the 4 pillars. We've covered how they get it. We've covered optimal, a couple of exercises, how to monitor. If you like to cook, one of the best things, I'm going to put it in the chat room, but one of the best things to do when you're cooking is look at your recipe and Google either, I like lasagna, keto lasagna, or keto fettuccine, or keto chicken parmesan. It could be paleo chicken parmesan, paleo fettuccine, paleo whatever. And when you have those things, when you put that word in front, the search word, the keyword is paleo, keto, when you have those in front, and I use those for me because I can eat that way and it doesn't affect me. It doesn't make my blood sugars go wonky. When I eat that way, that's the healthiest for me that I've seen. Now, you might be a vegetarian, and we might have to go look at vegetarian stuff. If you're going to go vegetarian or vegan, I would highly recommend getting a zonulin test or a leaky gut test, just to see if you're sensitive to zonulin or sensitive to gluten, because you may need to eliminate gluten anyway, and that's what eliminates the wheat, the flour, and stuff like that. You've got to know if you're sensitive or if you get leaky gut with, if you get leaky gut when you eat gluten. And any functional medicine doctor can test you for those antibodies. And those antibodies pop up, and then you know, hey, here we go. And then we can test you for food sensitivities over and above the normal tests that you get at like the medical doctor. So, hey Kathy, I see you're on there. How are you doing? Can you hear us? Are we better this week? But I think that pretty much covers about everything, don't you?
Yeah, tell them about your little experience with glucose and blood sugars, and because you do chiropractics and how that, because lots of people have those issues and they don't really think they have a blood sugar issue.
Oh yeah. So what I've started to do with my patients that come in as a chiropractic patient, I've gotten to where I can predict whether or not somebody is going to have a problem with being sore after the adjustment. And if they have an A1C of about 5-6 or higher, which is not diabetic, we term it pre-diabetic, but that means that they have high insulins, and I see their blood sugars. So here's something interesting for those of you that want to nerd out a little bit. If you have high insulin, your blood sugar will bottom out. What'd Kathy say about the sound? Your blood sugar will bottom out.
Can't get my glasses, Kathy.
Sound is still low. Well,
Is it?
huh.
We have to work on that.
Wait a second.
Can you hear one or both or neither?
Probably need to turn up the volume on that. We'll get it. You know what? Eventually it'll happen. Sorry. But if you have high insulin, your blood sugars will generally be low. And people say, oh, I'm not diabetic, I'm hypoglycemic. Okay, well, if you're hypoglycemic, we really need to do a fasting insulin test on you, because if your fasting insulin isn't between 3 and 4, and I'm saying insulin, not blood sugar, huge difference. If your fasting insulin is higher than 4, then we know there's a problem and you're not optimal. If you're above 5, we've got some work to do. But that's what's driving that down. You eat such a crappy diet, or you're so stressed that when these things happen, I had to turn my sound up to high to hear both of you.
Okay, we'll work on it.
Grr.
Thank you.
I am not the techie person I
Yeah.
used to be. See that little pod down there?
Yeah.
Turn it to the side and there's a volume on there. Let's see if we can turn it up. So that allows, let's see where you go, there it is. Okay. So that in turn allows the body to suck up a whole bunch of insulin. But if you're at that point, and that's the big thing, if you're at the point that your blood sugar is bottoming out, that still means you can transport it to the cell. This is a great place to catch you and to start to work on the blood sugar issues, because you probably don't have all of the insulin issues, you don't have all the diabetic issues, and this is a great place to catch you and turn it around before it becomes a problem. And so if they're between a 5, 6 or above, when I adjust those people, they typically tend to get very sore. And that's because their baseline inflammation isn't down here, the baseline inflammation is up here, and it's up here because of blood sugar and insulin. So it's one of those things that it's so super important, and you really need to watch it because it affects your health at every turn. Slow wound healing, slow recovery, cardiac issues, dementive issues, dementia, Alzheimer's, and all those things are now being termed diabetes type 3.
And it feeds cancers.
Yes, it does feed cancers. Some cancers are actually very responsive to a ketogenic diet, and the ketogenic diet works because it takes insulin out of the equation. There's actually a protocol that is in clinical trials. It's in the second stage of clinical trials, where they're using a ketogenic diet, and they're using not a PCSK9, they're suppressing insulin, and they're suppressing insulin with a ketogenic diet, and then they're using an old drug that actually flips the switch in the body that allows the body to be more sensitive to insulin, because the insulin feeds the cancer and allows it to grow. And when you're eating sugar and high fructose corn syrup, I'm trying to remember an old stat from about a year ago. The guy was actually he was on, I think it was Hpa's podcast, and Hpa was talking about that, and they're using an old drug to, high fructose corn syrup will not actually stimulate insulin, but we don't drink high fructose corn syrup by itself. The industry will segment out the sugars, so you'll have like modified cornstarch, and then you'll have glucose, or they'll add sucrose, or they'll add some other form of sugar. The high fructose corn syrup spikes the blood sugar, and then when you get into the glucose or sucrose, that stimulates insulin. When you have the high fructose corn syrup with the insulin, that's bad news. Actually, there is a great, I'm going to put it in the chat window, high fructose corn syrup, fructose, those drinks that are fruit drinks, they're not actually very healthy for us. They go through the liver just like alcohol. So Dr. Robert Lustig, I think it's called Sugar, the Taste That Kills. And this is a YouTube video. Oops. That video is a great watch. And if you're a nerd and you like to know the science behind stuff, go watch that video and it's going to explain sugars to you. As a matter of fact, I will pull it up here and I will put it with that little, with that post. Sugar, the taste that kills. And that'll have Dr. Robert Lustig's video. Oh, sorry, Sugar, the Bitter Truth. So that has his thing. I will grab a shareable link. Skip ads. Skip trial. We're going to share and I'm going to copy the link. Close. It is a lengthy podcast or video. Sugar, the Bitter Truth. Colon. Control V. Nope, I don't know my shortcuts. Nope. Ha, got it. So, the sugar, the taste that kills, that's actually by Dr. Blaylock, and that's on excitotoxins, which is, I'm answering Kathy's. That's actually on excitotoxins, and that's actually on artificial sweeteners. So, I just posted the video for YouTube. I actually have a patient coming in just a few minutes, so I have to break all of this stuff down that you can't see and get ready for another functional medicine patient.
Yep.
I was actually just wanted to take a moment and tell everybody thank you. Thank you for your support. I started wanting to be a functional medicine doctor 5 or 6 years ago, probably actually back in 2010. And slowly over time, it has grown and grown and grown. And I want to thank everybody because we wouldn't have this, we wouldn't have the part of the clinic that's functional medicine, and we wouldn't be helping the people that we get to help. And I give God credit because He works in wonderful ways in my life, and I'm very happy for it.
He's always good to us.
Yep.
All the time. But I wanted to, the Keto Mojo, if you're interested in the Keto Mojo, it is on a link on our website.
Yep.
The IndianaChiropractic.com.
Yep.
But you do not need this machine in order to help you. You can go get just a basic glucometer. I think you can get them as little as $15 with strips. You don't need to be a diabetic to use it. You can track health. You can track all kinds of things. He likes his gadgets, so I now like my gadget. But you can track your ketones with this one, and then it's pretty cool that you can put it all on the app. So
I put a link in there that has a 15% discount. So.
But we appreciate it. We'll see you next week. Stay healthy, and thank you.
All right. My battery's low. Finish.